Welcome to Chronic Curiosity, where we have real conversations with real people, from everything to anything, in attempts to facilitate dialogue with our fellow humans, and hopefully your curiosity as well as ours. If you can withstand the show, we ask, most importantly, that you tell your friends and family, but also you can pick up some merch or just donate to the show at chronic-curiosity.com in USD or Bitcoin. If you feel so obliged, you can give us a good rating and follow on whatever podcast platform you so choose. But please feel free to reach out to us on the website or the socials, which can also be found on the website, chronic-curiosity.com. And here we go. Have you ever done a podcast or anything?
Yeah, I know you want to kind of keep the same distance so that
it's not that big of a deal.
It's not.
Okay. Yeah, I have. Most of this equipment is for music. So I play music. Tony and I used to play music a lot. And during COVID, about halfway through, it was just like, hey, like, no one's talking. Like, why don't we start a podcast? Like, I have almost all the stuff. So I just kind of, not retrofitted, but essentially just multi-purposed
the audio
equipment for the podcast. Like, because these are all like, most of these are Shure's, like SM58s, which are one of the most popular live microphones for music that they use.
Okay.
So it was like, but they provide really good vocal audio too. So I was like, well, but I have all the equipment and stuff to like balance all those things and whatnot. So as long as you're somewhere in the range and the microphones are working,
it'll be good.
It'll be fine. Yeah. And you don't have to wear the headphones if you don't want to. I find it easier to kind of,
this is my first one, so this is cool.
Yeah. Well, it's yeah. So you'll want to be a little closer on that, but even if you let it like kind of float down here, like you end up just projecting into it.
Okay.
But yeah, it's the headphones help because you get a little bit more like in tune with everybody, and when you start, if you talk over like a normal conversation, people are talking over each other. You just don't realize it. But when you have your voice and their voice in your ears, it becomes a little more clustered when you're trying to talk over each other. And you recognize it a little more. So that's the why headphones are typically really nice, because you kind of adjust without knowing it your like conversational patterns, which obviously works out well when it's being recorded because you don't have a bunch of people talking over each other, in the recording. So that's really the headphone pieces. Oh, you mean for this? And I don't know if there's anything necessarily, obviously, particularly we'll touch on is what you guys are doing and the goal. And I know have you officially started the business?
We still started yet. You guys have a time restraint, first of all, because you guys often tend to get lost
we forget about
time.
that.
So I try to keep an eye on that if you're
okay.
No
Yeah, we usually end up around 2 to 3 hours.
Because
like surprised.
Yeah, and yet but if it's like, hey, I need to be out of here like in an hour and a half or 2 hours, then obviously we want to keep track of that. But usually about 2 hours is 2 to 2.5 hours is when like you start almost it's almost exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a workout really for your brain or whatever it is, but it's like, and then you realize, oh, we've been doing this for 3 hours. You're like, oh shit, like no kidding. So but anything that you particularly want to bring up, I mean, this is completely open forum. I don't have questions or notes or anything. No. So
I say we go completely off the cuff.
That's what I do.
That's
what we do. So are we can get started. You guys we can get started?
Yeah.
Well, Hyles and Cruz, I appreciate you hanging out and being here. I know Tony said he'd be maybe 10 minutes late, and that happened 10 seconds ago. So Tony shows up when Tony shows up. That's fine. But we've talked a lot about fitness and working out. There he is. You hear the dog going crazy. We talk a lot about just health in general on here, because I think that's an important piece of life, whether it be mental health, physical health is obviously pretty important for life, right? but we talk about family health and relationship health, all those different things. It's life. The tagline, if you haven't listened to the show, is, real people, real conversations. So that's just all what it is. We sit down and, here we go. But I noticed, Hyles reached out to me about what, in a sense, kind of gave me a rough estimate of what you guys are kind of shooting to do as friends, but it seems like that's turning a little bit more into that, or turning a little bit more into a directed kind of, I don't know if business is the word, or I don't know if you want to just kind of give us a breakdown of what you're doing and why and whatnot.
Yeah. So I actually started Masculine Conviction a couple months ago. And the goal of Masculine Conviction is to basically rebuild masculinity in America. And I developed ethos to go for that. And this also is targeting basically every man. Every man could follow these pretty easily. Now, with what him and I are doing, it's more of a project. We call it the Way of the Savage. Okay. So it's more targeted for those individuals that are, well, they're savages. They're not the average man.
You guys kind of look like savages.
Thank you.
I think that's a compliment, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
So these are the people that are gonna do these things that our way consists of, and we can get into that. But so it's going to take a special type of individual to do this stuff, because it requires you to not live like the normal human being in today's society to a certain degree. Now, obviously, like we talked about before, there's things that you can't avoid because of family, job, etc. But it's controlling a lot of those metrics. So yeah, that's kind of the breakdown. So Masculine Conviction kind of reaches everyone, and then the Way of the Savage is getting those savages.
Right. Speaking of savages.
There he is.
He looks like savage.
Yeah.
He is.
Years of savage.
Trust me, he is a savage. No, we just got started, Tone. I guess maybe let's back up. We could start with the masculine conviction piece, and we'll baby step our way to being a savage. Right? Mm-hmm. I think there's I don't know if I'm going to word this correctly, but I think there is a particularly dangerous disease that's going on in America with physical fitness, just general knowledge of just basic health and wellness, and masculinity in general. And I think a lot of times people hear the word masculinity and, we're kind of taught these days to think toxic masculinity. And, there's a big difference between just being an asshole and blaming it on being a man and, just, I guess maybe what's your definition of masculinity? What do you like? What's the goal there and the sights there?
So here's what I think where masculinity got a bad turn is that society and even other men, weak men, have pushed these ideas of, for example, chasing women, treating women poorly, chasing money, chasing tangible things, right? They push these things as being cool. That's what's toxic. Okay. So to me, masculinity is identifying who you are and what you stand for, and living your life by that. And when the people around you, you are being who you are to them always. And the people that you are accountable for, you hold yourself accountable for, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
no, I totally follow you there. And I think there's, between, people think this femininity and masculinity, it has to be necessarily like this gender or sex specific thing, right? And I think, a lot of times where there are some things that are, for a general statement, are very driven by your sex. yeah, sorry. Most women, most people born with vaginas can't grow beards. I've seen a couple, but usually they're not as nice as the ones in this room. And if you do, you could, that's an anomaly, right? So like I think the whole topic of like trying to throw out not even stereotypes, but generalities, like, well, they're generalities because that's generally how those things happen, right? Most people that are born with penises can grow a beard because that's just how the body is structured and works, right? Genetically. So I think there are aspects to masculinity and femininity that are different because of the way your hormones make you, right? It's in general, if someone needs physically protected, all right, well, am I going to choose a female or a male? Out of the hat, I'm going to try to pick a guy because typically they're bigger, they're stronger, they're more aggressive, and they just have the ability to they're more physically demanding. That's just
nature.
That's just nature. That's just the way it is, at least for humans. Mm-hmm. People talk, well, like lions, the lionesses are the ones that do the hunts. Yeah, but those lions are fucking badasses too. Like, I'm not saying a woman can't be physically adept by any means, but on average, there's differences there because we're born with different parts, different pieces, and different hormones. Right, Tony? We got different hormones and all the things. He knows.
I mean, a lot of the same hormones, just in different levels.
There you go. See, that's why he's the smart one about this. But so I think it's, yeah. Oh, don't try to play coy with the hormones, Tony, because I know you're a geek. I told someone that recently. They asked me about something along with, I don't know what it was, but I was like, I don't know. Let me ask a friend because I don't know. I said, but he
closet geek.
Yeah. But there's a difference there. And I think I feel like a lot of men, quote unquote, have kind of lost their way because they don't know what to cultivate in themselves. Right. Maybe that's part of it. While you're saying it, at least it seems to me, it's like we're told that some of these traits that are not good, that some of these traits are being put under toxic masculinity. Mm-hmm. That's well.
And I think what's happening is they are misidentifying those traits. So a lot of women are saying like, stoicism is bad, right? Because you should talk about your feelings and all this stuff. Well, here's an issue. As a man, as a protector, if you're constantly talking about how you feel, right, you're going to be now viewed differently by your woman and by your children. Those two aspects of your life should see you as strong. And there's a reason for that, because when something happens, they're going to look to you. And if you're the one who's constantly crying about what's going on in your life, then they're not going to look to you the same, right? So now that doesn't mean that you don't deal with your issues, right? That's what brothers are for. That's what, it's not like you bottle them up and then become an asshole. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm saying is there's discernment. You have to have discernment. So I think like stoicism was one that I mentioned. They kind of misplaced that. That's the dickhead move to not talk about your feelings. No, there's time and place too. Yeah. It's not saying that you can't talk to your wife about your issues, but there's a time and place, and there's a way to convey that, right? And I feel like what ends up happening is one or two things happen. Either the men try to bottle everything up and then they end up exploding, and then that's where the problem lies. It's not being
that's where the toxicity comes out.
Yeah. it's how we react to these things, not the things themselves. So being stoic is a very good thing, but if you reach to a point that you can't control it and then you react poorly, now that's a problem.
Right. You never deal with it properly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think there's that too, right? Where it's, it's okay you need to deal. You're going to have feelings. Everyone's got feelings. Mm-hmm. But like, I guess to your point, like
your feelings don't matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like feelings do matter, but we don't need them to be the top priority all the time, because sometimes a job just needs to get done. Mm-hmm. And, I think a good another view of that I've seen where I've heard. I know a lot of people don't like him either, but I use him all the time, and I'm wearing his T-shirt today. So Jordan Peterson, he talks about masculinity is needed in society, and like I love it when they pair it up against videos of like these guys down like the sewers with like cockroaches crawling all over them, like doing jobs that uphold the our infrastructure. Okay, like if we're gonna play this whole equality game, then all right, who wants to go down and work in the sewers? Who wants to go dig ditches? Who wants to climb up 300-foot tall electrical structures and be sitting on a conduit for over 300,000 volts and be working on it? Like, who wants to climb a 1,500-foot cell tower to replace a light bulb? You need a certain type of personality and a certain type of inclination to be able to do those things. That hard manual labor day in, day out, like, well, it takes a hard manual, physical body to be able to do that. And that stoicism to be able to take those feelings. Yeah, I don't want to climb 1,000 feet in the air, but you know what? I got a job to do. It needs done. So I'm going to tuck that little fear inside my deep little box, and I'm going to deal with it later. Right.
And now you mentioned the job, but now what happens whenever others are impacted? So, for example, I was Marine Corps infantry. So can a woman be an infantryman? Most certainly. I was a machine gunner, and there was some machine gunners that I would probably have rather had women. Okay. In some instances, but we have to look at what is for the greater good. So having a woman out there for months on end with a bunch of men, what do you think is going to happen there?
Oh, there's a lot of things that could happen there.
Okay. And then logistically speaking, they need more, supplies than we do. Their periods. Now, granted, their periods would slow down in a combat situation, but still there's other things that come into play there. So now we're not even talking about the individual being effective. It's about the group being effective.
Right.
So that's a whole nother case there. So yeah, I completely follow you entirely on that. Not only is it about the job, but it's about the others around. So, you take that sewer situation, or actually you take a combat situation. So us four are out with a woman, right? You and the woman go down. Us three who are we going to aid first? Naturally, who are we going to aid first? We're going to aid the woman first.
Yeah.
That's nature. That's just how it's going to happen. You're going to be left over there bleeding out. Is that fair? Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, no, you can't add these extra elements already into a system that is effective. Men have been in combat since the beginning of time, and that's why change it. Why? Now, that's not to say, there has been women in combat, like Russians use snipers for various reasons, and I think that they can be implemented, but overall we have to look at what is the most effective.
Yeah, I think when you break it down to effectiveness, just pure at its core, I agree. It's same argument with firefighters. If someone can do the job, I don't give a damn whether if they're male, female, if they got both parts. If it's a dinosaur, whatever it is. If they can do the job, they can do the job. But statistically speaking, if like going into a fight, or I want someone to drag my 225-pound body out of a burning building. Well, I would prefer a 250-pound man to do that, not a 150-pound woman, because that's going to be just physically more difficult. Like, it's just, I don't know how you could ever argue against that, because it's just physically more demanding. The lighter you are, more than likely, the less weight you can lift. So how, like, to your point, when you get into those extensive areas and those reasons, like, all right, yes, maybe at most points in time, men and women can be equal in a lot of things, but there's a lot of things that, like you brought up snipers too. I think we watched the show. What was it? It was years ago. They did like it was like a sniper reality show, or like a shooter reality show, where they did like marksmanship, and they had all different types of things. Like, and men and women competed very, very closely on that. Like target acquisition, like shooting, like all those things. Like, yeah, there's not much of a difference. And some of the women were a lot better than the men at just shooting a gun. But again, well, can you carry around 150 pounds of extra equipment on you?
There's more that goes into
and
that.
then be able to drag your 200-pound partner out of a combat situation if they get injured. Like, that's where.
And also, just from experience, marksmanship shooting and combat shooting are two different things.
I can imagine. I can imagine that for sure.
So, so it is not to say that they still wouldn't be more effective. They possibly could be, but there is a huge difference there, and and I think, something else too is like, we take all these things where we're comparing, and really what we should be doing is just discerning which task is best for each individual, based on their, you want to talk about equality, instead of trying to force an entire gender into something, how about we just take it by hand? Oh, this female is a really good shot. Okay. Well, maybe we can implement her somewhere on the team where she'll be effective without impacting the entire team.
Yeah. No, I think discerning is a good word for that, right? Let's categorize these things and say, okay, this person's really good at A, B, and C, but they're not very good at D. So when that gets involved, let's just focus on what they're good at and put that the best for the job, right? Meritocracy, as dirty as of a word. I don't know how that ever became like this, like snuffed out word, that meritocracy is a bad thing. Like, at least to me, it's always been like, if you're good at something, all right, great, let's utilize you for that so you can be effective at these things. But if you're not good at it, like, we can't just shove you into that.
You better be the right color. You better.
Well, it's like,
we can't have you then.
Yeah, well, we need an extra vagina on the. Well, we need an additional penis that's this color and from this country. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, you don't go to the doctor and go, yes, I need to make sure. Well, I'm just whatever it is, right? Like, I
need a female doctor.
Yeah, like I need a doctor. Yeah, I need a doctor that has a penis not too big, because he'll be a little too arrogant if it's too big. But I also need him to be from India, because most good doctors come out of India. Like, what? No, like, give me the best one. Like, he's a brain surgeon. Well, you have a heart problem. Yeah, but this is what I need. Like, no, like, I want the best person for the best job, period. Mm-hmm. Like, so the idea that we can kind of toss these things aside, I can't make sense of it. And I don't know how it makes sense to other people, that when you really think about, I just want the best person for the best job, regardless of what color, what sex they are, or gender, or whatever we're using these days, whoever they like to fuck. I don't care. I just want the best person for the best job, for the best situation, like, period. And I think maybe that's the confusion. And I hear more talk about masculinity and these things, and I think it's a good thing to talk about these things in a practical and even though a lot of people don't like to talk about things like statistically, because it's like you take the human out of it. But guess what? Sometimes numbers don't lie. So let's make this all work for all of us the best way we can, right?
Yeah, and I think the thing is we're not pushing masculinity to take down femininity. We want it to excel, because here's another issue too, is like, especially in like relationships, and you've actually recognized this a lot, is that women are forced to take on masculine role because the man isn't being masculine. So in reality, by the men stepping up and being masculine, you're going to help your female counterpart, right? Whether they realize it or not, you will help them, and you will help yourself, and you'll help your family, and then in turn you'll help the community, and in turn the entire society. So it's like, it's a trickle effect. And I think ever since, and I don't know, we can talk about the testosterone levels dipping over the past 100 years, whatever it is, it could be anything, our way of life now, but it's just slowly faded away. And think about it. Since masculinity's dropped, what's increased? All of our problems, all of our problems as a society. So it's like we just need to get back to that, to where it's not like I'm trying to rewind the clock. It's more like just understand, the things that you need to handle as a man to help your family.
So we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. Essentially, is kind of what I'm hearing. Let's keep the baby, but throw the bathwater out. The bullshit, right? So how did you guys get to the point where you're at now, where, from
Lots of drugs,
lots of
lots of steroids.
So I know, Hyles, you mentioned that you're trying to kind of recenter on this path of like, all right, how do I do this kind of like in a more natural sense? I kind of look at it the same way that I look at our history as humans. We've been doing this human thing for, I think, tens and tens of thousands of years at a high level. I believe, I think it's the first time I've ever like actually believed like something that I can't prove, that we were probably an advanced civilization about 12,000 plus years ago. And then just a catastrophe happened and it kind of dropped us back. And then we became, basically became hunters and gatherers. And
that will happen again, probably.
Oh, probably. Yeah. So who knows how long it's, has it happened before and all these different things. So, what do you think has kind of woken you up to this new kind of, it's not necessarily new thinking, but it's breaking out of the typical molds, and even for lifters and, bodybuilders and power lifters, not always, you can kind of generally put them in
you trying to categorize me?
Yeah, you can categorize me, but because it lends to a certain type of person that does, consistently does a certain thing. You mentioned, steroids, all these different things. So like, how did if you could give us a little backstory on like where you were at, both of you were at, and then going like the transitional phase to kind of say, wait a minute, maybe this isn't what I should be doing, and changing that mindset.
Well, me personally, it's back when my ex-wife and I got divorced back in 2019, and it kind of sporadically induced like extra brain waves that I wasn't used to, and forced me to look within myself and start just kind of critiquing myself, because I'm very hard on myself, and I have been for most of my life. And that was in 2019. And then in 2020, we had, as I like to call the pandemic. The pandemic happened. Everyone started wearing masks. They told me I had to go in my house at 10 p.m. And I'm like, why? And then I just started essentially questioning everything about reality at that point. And I quit competitive powerlifting during that time because all the gyms shut down. Sure. So I started adapting a more ancestral mindset to my training, and understanding that supply chains may not always be adequate for my TRT, for my Trenbolone, for all these other things that I was using, and how I can start to enhance my body naturally. And it has really just been a shift in mindset for me, going from this super structured 6 meals a day, trying to just become more in tune with myself and in better touch with nature, and just learn how to do more masculine things. Like I went to welding school. I learned to trade because I was like, I need a trade to be able to serve my community if we were to have any sort of societal breakdown. And it just continuing to evolve for me. Just wanting to help with helping men with their hormones. So that's kind of how the transition has happened for me.
Yeah, there's definitely a transition, I think, for a lot of people. Honestly, I feel really bad. I haven't really thought about this. I feel really bad for the people that have gone through the past 4 years, I guess, maybe, as adults, and not have taken away something from it to go, you know what, this really made me reconsider what's going on, or my life, or what's important to me, or my career. Even there's a lot of that too, right? Where people went through COVID and was like, why am I doing this? I went from showing up, being at the office for 50, 60 hours a week, to sitting in my house doing the exact same thing from a computer, but now I could actually spend more time with my family, and like I still get the same amount of job. I still get my job done because I'm not standing around bullshitting with people for like, what is this whole thing about? Like, what are we doing here? So even to that point, like, I feel bad for those people that went through the experience that we did collectively and not pulled some kind of little nugget away of maybe this is the chance to like readjust what I'm doing, right? Because I went through a very similar thing too. It was like, what's going on here? Maybe I should start just questioning, and not only what I'm doing, but just in general, like, because that's how you learn, right? That's how you grow.
Mhm.
So what was it for you? Like, how did you end up here?
So for me, well, we both were high level powerlifters. I mean, squat in the 700s, benched 500, and actually 545. Anyways,
Yeah, you gotta be
I
pretty
squatted
clear.
over 800.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Devotion accuracy department.
And then we both were pulling the 700s. So we're both, Now, here's the thing with that is what I recognized is I found myself. I reached a point where I found myself I was a slave to my mindset, and to a drug, slave to the needle, and to whatever, like, because, you compete at this level, and what you realize is, well, what you think you realize is that, oh, okay, well, last meet prep, I did this, so I got to run this amount. And if I want to hit this number, then I need to add in this at this time, 100 milligram of anadrol, 500 milligram of tren, and you are attached to these external forces, right? And then you're even attached to that mindset, and you're a slave to it, and it's all you think about. You're obsessed with it. Like, it's just more. And I recognized that, I forget, I got to a point where I got TRT because I was concerned about the
fallout.
The underground.
Oh,
wait, I never got it illegally. Wait, never mind. So, anyways, I was concerned about getting it.
The other markets.
Yes, the other markets. So I was concerned about that. So I got on TRT so I'd have it. Well, then I received a letter in the mail saying that my TRT could be delayed. So then that was the next thing. So then I was like, oh, wow. I remember that day. I was like, I'm not even taking this because, like, no, I'm not a slave to this anymore. I don't care what happens. I will figure it out because I'm not going to be a slave to this anymore. And so from that day, I literally that second started researching what the hell I could do to optimize my hormones. And I've just slowly, the steps that we've taken, and we can go and break it down, but just slowly adapted those things. And obviously we're still this is all testing. But the good thing about this is that, all these things that they've tested on people before about increasing testosterone, usually those individuals are not in a environment that is conducive. So they are eating processed foods, they're going, whatever the case may be, they're having disruptors, right? We have eliminated a lot of the disruptors. So a lot of these things should, in theory, be more effective. We're going to obviously put that to the test.
So how long have you been?
Nothing.
No, I mean, like,
nothing.
Well, not only that, but kind of come to a focus point of, okay, this is what we're running the science experiment, because that's kind of, maybe not science experiment, but it kind of seems like a like self experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so how did you come to that decision, and how long have you been doing that? Because I think everybody, when you look at, we were talking a little bit before we started recording, was like, people, if they come to me and ask for like fitness advice, well, it's like, well, let's cut your soda intake by half. Just try that first. Maybe try to get some, try to get up and walk a mile a day.
I see where this is going.
Do that first, right? Like, let's make baby steps, because like, so that way you can build a baseline, right? You have to know where you're at to understand where you want to go and where you're going and how to get there. So how did you get to, all right, we're going to build this baseline, and then this is the path that we're going to take, and this is kind of the direction we want to head, and this is why.
So I think I can speak for him, probably everyone sitting at this table. Unlike those individuals that have to cut their soda in half. We're not those people. We're not even the people that drink soda. So, we like when I quit, there was no ease off because, and there was no ease startup because I stopped the drug. So it's like there's you can't, you're not weaning off of this. And no, I didn't take HCG, and no, I didn't take Clomid, and no, I didn't do any of those things that everyone says you should do. We can get into that because I think it just delays the inevitable. But regardless, so it was like a hurricane. Like it came on quick, right? Whenever I decided, I knew the heat already came off stuff just from Instagram, I believe. We talked about it a little bit, and I've known Hyles. We never actually competed together, but we were competing at a high level at the same time.
Gotcha. And I guess maybe real quick, how long were you guys using exogenous materials? Like what like the time frame? Just because some people, they'll use them once or twice. Some people use them for 10, 20 years. Like just to put that in perspective, because a lot of people are like, "Oh, I've been doing this for 10 years. Like, there's no way. Like, I'm destroyed. I can never go back," or whatever it is.
I started at 18 years old, and it was just a fella at the gym wanting to make some money off me. Sold me some Test and Deca, pinned it in my quad, like 750 milligrams of oil, and like my leg hurt so bad and I couldn't hardly walk. But I was so obsessed with becoming stronger as a teenager. And then I got into bodybuilding when I was 22, and I would cycle on and off from 18 till 21, and then it was Blast and Cruz. Blast and Cruz from 21 up until...
Blast and Cruz, you define that.
Blast and Cruz, yes. Blast and Cruz is a TRT level dosage, which wasn't so TRT level. It was more like 400 milligrams of test. And then blasting, I would go up to 1,000 milligrams of test, Trenbolone, Deca, Anadrol, anything it took to become the strongest fucking power lifter I could become. That was my mindset. And then when this time of enlightenment happened for me back in 2020, as I was speaking of earlier, is when I got on TRT. So I moved away. I dabbled in a little bit of light stuff after that, but I pretty much transitioned into a TRT because I was of a mindset, there is no way that I'm ever going to be able to establish or regain the damage that I've done to my body from such a young age. And from that point until the beginning of, the first of this year, I was on TRT, and I've continued to feel convicted to just not use it anymore, and not because I felt like there was anything wrong with it, but I didn't want to be put in a point like kind of what Cruz was talking about, of not being able to get it. And I always have like a mindset. I was like, well, maybe I might have a family one day. Maybe I might not, because I'm 29. So these thoughts were also there too. And then I cut everything. I wouldn't drink any alcohol. I wouldn't eat any processed foods. All I ate was whole eggs and rice for a month. I did an elimination diet because I'm realizing how much our microbiome and our stomach and our gut health contributes to our overall hormones. So that's what I did for a month. And then probably 2 months into this year of me not taking anything, I made drastic measures. I'm doing cold plunging. I'm doing red light therapy. I'm fasting. I'm literally starving myself for some points of time because I went from let's become the strongest damn human in the world to reaching homeostasis hormonally. So like that intensity got transitioned into this intensity. And then Cruz came about, and then we just started combining our mindsets. I'm big into the nutritional side of things. He's big into the training side of things. And it's just really taking off for the both of us. And I honestly do feel the best I have ever have in my life. And I got an InBody scan done at the Ashland warehouse, and I was at 10% body fat. I'm pressing 100-pound dumbbells. I'm pulling over 500 pounds. So I feel like there's something right that I'm doing. But we ultimately are going to have testing to continue. So.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask. I was going to say I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
Were you getting labs done while you were taking all of the extracurriculars, and have you taken them since you've been off?
See, I ordered labs, and I'm getting labs done here this week.
Okay.
I did not have labs done previously because I have a mindset that if I focus my attention, because whatever your attention on, whatever you're focusing on grows. So if I'm focusing on a numerical number of a perceived testosterone level that's in my organic body that has no straight lines and is not fabricated by any means, I'm an organism. So my mind will manifest said number into my body. And that was it's kind of hard to describe the mindset that I was in at the point in time. But I felt that if I had this number, my mind would associate that number with my hormones. So I did not do any testing until I got linked up with Cruz. And I'm like, you know what? I need to have some sort of proof of what I'm doing is working. So I've adapted more of a mindset. Okay, so now that I've established this, I know what I'm doing is working. Let's get some proof out there. But, it could ultimately be bad or good. But I do feel better. So, but the numbers will ultimately, tell the tale.
Well, I think that's an important point too, is feeling better.
Yeah.
I think it's one aspect of physical fitness, especially when people take it to even a moderate, in between a moderate and extreme level, is you never really get successful in lifting, endurance sports, even marathon runners, whatever it is, without having some kind of connection to your body and how you feel. Like, you have to understand what your body's going through. I've talked about lifting a ton, done it since high school. I stopped having planned workouts in my late 20s, maybe even mid 20s. It was like, I got to the point where I realized, like, you know what? I'm going to the gym all the time consistently. I go to the gym and, I hit legs yesterday. They're sore. My upper body's not sore. It feels good. I'm just going to work that today because it's not worked. Like, it feels like it just needs worked, so there's some sense of intuition that you gain and you grow. Same thing with people with like diets. I don't care, we talk about, carbs and fats and proteins and keto and, whatever, Atkins and all these different diets. Well, it's like people tell you, well, this is what you need to be doing. If you're this tall, you weigh this much, if you're this age, this is what you need to be eating. Well, that's silly, because when you look at cultures around the world, they all eat different stuff. We all have different, intolerances for things, and even to as far as allergies. So like, just because, a keto diet or, something that's super low carb works for somebody and they feel great on it, doesn't mean that's going to make everyone feel good.
That'll hurt your testosterone too, by the way.
He's like, that's not good for it. But you know what I mean? Like, some people like do great. Like, you know what? Like, I've heard of people that have, certain issues that they go on to just straight pure meat and vegetables, and they feel fantastic. Their health illnesses or ailments disappear. Like, great. But some people, you need carbs. You need this. Your body wants this, that, whatever. Like, some people can't deal with, dairy products. I could drink a gallon of milk. Well, I was going to say I could drink a gallon of milk right now and feel fine, but that's a lot of milk. But you know what I mean? Like, I could drink an entire glass of milk where I feel great, versus another person, it makes them throw up and shit themselves for the next day.
Yeah.
Well, right.
Yeah.
That's me.
Well, I think a big thing too is just, you have to, one, take into account how your body reacts to things, but also like what your goals are. So like, for example, the individual that feels better off of, you said meats and vegetables, right? Maybe performance isn't really imperative to him. Maybe it's just like his inflammation or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It causes health issues. So maybe he's not too concerned about how he performs on bench press or on whatever.
Right.
So like, yeah, he doesn't need those carbs, right? But then you take somebody who, like us, where we're, we want to do something crazy.
Move shit.
Yeah, we want to do something crazy naturally. You know what I mean? We're going to need carbs.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but if the carbs is what is causing someone with like rheumatoid arthritis to have severe inflammation, and you can't get out of bed in the morning because of the carbs, because your joints hurt so bad. Okay, well there's a special condition here for this person, right? That now you have to understand what your body needs, because not every body is going to need the same thing. So like, I think that's an important piece too, is that there's learning. You can't start someone out that has no idea about health, fitness, what their body needs and nutrition, all these different things, and just say, well, just eat intuitively. Well, because they're going to eat fucking ho-hos and soda and like cake all day long.
And
because they're like, well, I want cake. That's what my body's intuitively telling me. Like, that's not going to work good for you until you understand and, I guess, set that baseline.
Right? Wonder why their body's telling them that, though. Probably because of the years of processed foods.
Well, yeah, because they're addicted to sugar, right? Yeah, probably.
I've actually gotten big into the intuitive eating, like with my bodybuilding background, everything was highly structured. And I realized that it was causing more oxidative stress for me just to get all these meals in or get these timed meals in. That was like, it was irregular. I don't feel like we're supposed to be like constantly timing our meals. So it was creating inflammation and oxidative stress in my body, I feel. And I've been trying to help people with the intuitive eating side of things, but you nailed it on the head. It's such a hard concept to grasp for a lot of people. But like a big thing that I've done to help people understand this concept a little better is just stick to the whole foods. We're sticking to the whole foods because it's really, really hard for someone to overeat eating whole foods, making single ingredient foods, and limiting your meals to 3 times a day. You're limiting your meals to 3 times a day and you're eating whole foods, I really think the average person's not going to consume more than like 2,500 calories.
I think it's a good place to start, like just eating real food in general. Exactly. Like that's like cutting out the processed sugars and the sodas and the junk food and the stuff that comes in plastic packaging. Like I know it's a lot harder than what it sounds. And I think we've been slowly practicing that for like years, but it's baby steps. You realize like once you start getting into like, all right, to tell somebody the average person, we'll just use the average stereotypical person, just eat whole foods, like just eat real food. Like they have no fucking clue what that means. They think they do, maybe. But when you realize like every single thing you pick up from the store or you buy and like you look at the ingredients, if there's ingredients printed on it, more than likely it's not whole foods because it's, you know, like, so it's, I don't think it's necessarily one of those things, like we said, like that you have to just cut it off like cold turkey for everybody. Cause not everyone's going to stick to that. But if you can start practicing,
unless you're a savage,
yeah, but if you've never practiced being a savage, it's very hard to be a savage, right?
This is true.
Yeah. So like you have to, if you don't have some aspect in your life that you feel you have complete and utter control over to be able to manipulate it however you want, diet is probably not the first thing to try to start off with, because it's hard, especially in the culture that we have and we've built today. Like going out to eat, like you go out to a restaurant and eat quote unquote real food that they cook, but all the stuff that's added in there, where they get it, so it's just adding in that real food is, I think, one thing that most people don't even understand. And guess what? Real food, once you tweak your taste buds a little bit and get rid of, like you talk about all the sugar, like if you can get rid of some of those super additives and the sugar and kind of wean yourself off of those things, like real food is fucking delicious.
Yes.
Like delicious.
Yes.
Like, so like, but you don't realize that. Like if you just have a piece of cake and then you eat a piece of like restaurant cooked steak that someone didn't cook it very well, it's like, well, the steak's good, but this cake was a lot better. But then if you don't have the cake and have somebody cook you like a really good, I mean, if you like meat, if you like steak, like it's like, oh, it does something. It feels like, it just feels different to your body, where it's like, oh yeah, like you talked about, not the average person isn't going to overeat off of whole foods because it's real food, right? And it's not going to just take your body and take all that shit and just put it in the storage, turn it to fat. It's going to use it. And I think that's an important piece that just, if people can start chipping away at the iceberg or whatever it is, to start just, let's make little baby steps to get a little bit more, back to something natural, because lab grown meat and stuff that has 30 ingredients that I can't pronounce, it's kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
Once you really start looking at it, like, how do you know it's not destroying you? Maybe 29 of those 30 ingredients are just fine. But what about the one that's like going to give you cancer?
it's almost like not to say it's worse than anabolics, but to that degree, like everything that we've taken in from young childhood that we didn't even know has been affecting our hormones. Now, like we realize the anabolics obviously affect our hormones way more,
Yeah, but I used to eat those giant pixie sticks that were like the huge tubes, and just straight
Those probably
just to
probably
the
not
face. Yeah, it was like probably like 80 grams of sugar just straight to the dome. Like that had to be
Go
fantastic.
diabetic in 2 hours.
Yeah.
So how did you? So were you eating? What was the diet as well with was this just like a complete, almost like cold turkey piece for you, like a complete flip of everything, or did you have kind of a grasp on nutrition and those things, or is this all coming together all at once? It sounds like it's all kind of coming together for you all at once in this whirlwind.
Yes. So to just kind of answer your question a little bit from before. So this about 6 to 8 weeks ago, we started this. We started really we put our heads together, because it was it was like the end of March. So yeah, so let's just say about 6 to 8 weeks roughly. Okay. And basically he was already doing a lot of stuff, right? And I think he'll even admit that he maybe wasn't having me there definitely helped, where I mean, I'm full go. Like I emptied out my closet because it was all polyester.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So yeah. So we can get into that. That's a whole nother story. But anyways, yeah, I mean, it was a complete complete overhaul. We
just going for it.
Yeah, going for it, because I really think that because here's the thing. If we have anything that could potentially throw off our hormones, then it kind of skews the whole experiment. Now, there's going to be things that we can't control. Like I said, I don't know what to clean this table with. I'm around electronics that affect our hormones. There's things I can't control. So I can't add in anything else that I can't, that's going to impact it, right?
Control what you can control.
Control what you control. So we basically eliminated absolutely everything. And I mean, basically the what we're doing is eating whole foods. We're doing red light therapy, like you mentioned, cold plunges, deep breathing protocols, utilizing sprinting, utilizing fasting, and there's other foods that we can utilize to help increase testosterone too, like raw honey actually increases luteinizing hormone, which is a precursor to testosterone. Now, we're going to see on our blood panel, because I'm getting a blood panel the same day he is. So, and no, I did not take anything. Well, I can tell you what all I ran. I don't know where my levels were at that point in time.
So how big will be the break from your first panel to the second one, since you've been? So, I'm assuming you're going to continue doing this too. I guess I'll let you answer that question.
Yeah.
Sorry, too many questions at once.
No, it's okay. So I plan on doing every 3 months. I think 3 months is a good time period to see some type of change. And within those 3 months, we may add or take something away depending on what, obviously if we deem it's beneficial, to see how it impacts the panel, and keep everything else the same. So whatever we've changed to this point is just going to stay the same throughout the duration, right? Unless we find that it's detrimental. And then we'll calculate certain things to change from that point on. And now the only thing that I'm doing different than him, this is going to be interesting, even though it's two different people, is I'm supplementing. So I'm supplementing with Fedosia agrestis, Tangat Ali, boron, DHEA, and vitamin D, obviously, and zinc, magnesium, all your typical. So I got a list of things that I'm taking to help upregulate my testosterone. Now, what will be interesting though is, even like with the honey, a lot of these things, they increase luteinizing hormone. Well, when you don't have a functioning pituitary gland because of 8 years of anabolic use, just because you have that luteinizing hormone, we'll see if it actually works. Because I think our biggest thing is going to be we're going to be signaling the body. We're biohacking the body to signal, like we're signaling, hey, produce test. Now, it's going to take some time for the body to catch up to that message, because for 8 years we told it, we got you. We
Right.
got you with a bunch of tests.
How long has it been since you both just stopped?
So for me, it's been 6 weeks. No, nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Tone, do you think that getting labs this week, 6 weeks will, like, how long do you think
So,
will be like a good balance baseline, like to see if you're back to baseline?
I mean, obviously you're still going to be suppressed after 6 weeks. So
Mhm.
as long as you guys are on stuff, I mean, it might take, if you're not on any gonadotropin stimulating anything, which, you know, obviously you said you're taking the Fadoja and you're taking the the Tonkat, like, yeah, I mean, I've seen guys that took like over a year
Mhm.
to have like like small levels of FSH and LH production return. So
I wonder how much of that is due to just getting. Do they do anything additional along with
no,
getting off? You know what I
I'm
mean?
saying
Or
if
just
they didn't have anything to stimulate the gonadotropins, the FSH and LH, it took a very, very long time for a small level of function to come back. So
Which, so there's one thing that so whenever I hopped on TRT, I did have to get my labs done for that. So I never ran a lab whenever I was on full blast. So but after 2 weeks of stopping things the last time to get on TRT, it was bad. It was like my test level was like 150 after 14 days.
So it'd be interesting to see, I guess, if nothing else, there's at least a point of test or a point of information going, okay, how long does it take
That is
for
what
me to get back to a typical
Yeah.
rate, right?
That
That's another, that would be, I'd imagine your first test, right? Because if you can get back within 3-4 months, 5 months, whatever it is, like if that's much faster than average, well, okay, then you might be onto something, right?
Yes. So essentially, we're establishing where we're at baseline. It's not really to establish if we've rebounded. I don't expect to be full rebounded. Like he said, it's going to take a bit of time. But the thing is like he was saying with the guys that take over a year, is a lot of them are doing other things to suppress their hormones they're not even realizing. Like, so for example, a big guy recently that we both know, Pete Rubish, he was a huge deadlifter on YouTube. He had the washer and dryer in the background. He's like a 920-pound deadlifter. Okay, so he stopped everything, and it took him about 2.5 years to get fully rebounded. But in his last test, what he noticed was he filtrated his water, and his test went up from like 300 to 500. So for 2 years, he could have been potentially suppressing his testosterone by 200 points just off water alone. So what
What was it about his water that he thinks it was?
Fluoride, because he also took out fluoride toothpaste.
Mm.
So that was the thing. The thing he took out from the one test to the next test was just fluoride.
I gotcha.
So, and everything else he kept, for what we know, the same. So what are these guys doing? What are they eating? Because, you know, and are they training? And
Right.
what are they doing to combat those levels? Now, I still agree with him. I think it's going to take some time. I don't think it's going to, like, you know,
Right.
8 weeks we're boom, ready to roll.
Right.
No, I don't.
Body doesn't work that way.
No, I don't expect that. But I expect it to be much faster than the normal person who's not taking these extra measures.
Right.
And really fighting all this disruptors. I mean, we are fighting I threw out all my polyester clothes.
So what do you think it is about poly? Because I've seen a lot of different things.
Phthalates.
So it's
You
phthalates.
yes.
It's the phthalates. Okay.
So
That's
polyester is made from polyethane.
you don't want your gooch to shrink.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or at least my kids' gooch to shrink. I don't know.
So I mean, that's what it comes down to. And these phthalates are found in various things, you know, the cleaning supplies that we use, the soaps that we use, clothes that we wear. So it's just eliminating as much as possible to control that measure. And you know, how much effect that has, it might vary from person to person.
Right.
You know, so yeah. But
Tony, how often do you find that people that took like extras for performance then end up have to be on TRT just to have a like normal testosterone level?
Oh, I think it varies for like every person. So, I mean, and the other thing I think you have to think of is like that mindset that when you come from like feeling like a god, basically, then you're like, if you get off of everything, then you're like, oh, and then even when you establish some normalized levels, and I hate that word when it comes to testosterone levels, then they don't feel the same. So
so even
it's
though their
interesting.
labs are normal, they're used to feeling awesome.
Yeah, I mean, when you're at super physiologic levels for so long, like,
there is a lot to that too. Because I mean, full disclosure, I've been in similar shoes.
oh, we've all been juicy at this table.
I have not.
So I understand that, and it takes. I mean, I would say to even working out, eating fairly healthy, and trying and doing those things, it does. It takes a long time to kind of get back to, particularly in the environments that you feel it the most, right? Going to the gym, and when you're all jacked up, it's like you walk in there, it's like it's fucking go time, and it's like just rage time. Like not rage as in like anger, but just like you feel like a fucking god. And it's like, yeah, I can run through this goddamn wall with this, carrying this 500 pounds. I'll throw this fucking deadlift bar on my shoulder. Let's fucking go. This is awesome. But then it's afterward. Once you don't have that, super high levels of fucking feel good, it's like, oh shit. And it does take some time, without trying to do additional things. So I think maybe you guys you're doing it right, is all right. Let's try to naturally do everything we can to, bring ourselves back up to homeostasis, because without, I think a lot of people, I think that's where any type of, really, I'm just going to use the word for, chemical abuse. Anything that you're doing, that you're adding to your body, whether it be dopamine levels and all these different things, without trying to counterbalance the inevitable crash that you're going to have in your body, like it's going to be rough. So a lot of people can't go through that either. So then you have depression and all these other things that get added on top. And then, you're not feeling as good. You're probably not looking quite as good because you can't put in quite as much effort as you used to, because you don't have the energy and all these different levels, and it just compounds. So it's that I like you guys have been talking about it. It's not just one thing. It's this stack. It's this just pile of shit that you have to sort out and attack in different ways. And
and I think, you mentioned it too, is like when you don't have that, testosterone's that, wait, real quick. Wait, Tony, you're saying I'm not going to be able to bench 545 anymore?
No, I would love to see that happen again, so.
No, I mean, there's
maybe not for a little while.
There's
How about that? Give it a couple months.
There's definitely things to you have to recognize that probably aren't going to happen anymore, and I do feel like, because we're actually going to be pushing our deadlift soon, and I think that's the lift that is the least reliant on drugs. So because squat and bench, you need a lot more muscle mass to lower the weight, whereas with deadlift, it's a lot more leverage based and technique based. So we can get away with that. So that's why. Plus, if I pull sumo, but that just seems to be the natural lift. Like Natty's all.
Well, you got to pick shit up, right? Like, how often do you find yourself laying on your back with something super heavy on top of your head that you have to lower down and raise back up?
Yeah,
I mean, nothing that I want to weigh more than me. I'm just saying.
I definitely like what you guys are doing with this. So, like, I'm thinking about the reason that we would need higher testosterone levels in general, like as a species. And, you think of like the cavemen, like there were other things that would hunt us. We had to be bigger. We had to be stronger. We had to be faster. And we went through these periods where, there wasn't a mammoth bar at all times that we could go up to and get food. So you were in these fasted states for long periods of time. You didn't have the roof over your head all the time. You didn't have the woolly mammoth coat sometimes. So you experience these extreme temperatures, which you guys are, forcing yourself to go through, and kind of eating off the land, if you will, getting away from those things. It absolutely makes sense that you guys are trying to put yourselves doing everything that kind of the cavemen would have done to hopefully elicit higher levels of testosterone, because then the body might go, oh shit, like we need to be bigger, we need to be stronger, we need to be faster, because we're experiencing some of these same things that that we used to experience.
Yeah. So kind of my theory is, and I feel like a lot of doctors and, well, maybe not doctors. I feel like a lot of smart people in the fitness community feel the same way.
That's more of a compliment than doctors, because I've known some doctors that.
So I feel that stress. Now, there's a difference though. I feel like quick, abrupt stress induces testosterone. Acute stress destroys testosterone. Sorry, but the nagging girlfriend or wife is killing your testosterone. I don't mean that, that's one acute stress. Another acute stress is, your job, things we got to deal with. And,
financial problems.
Yes, all those. Anything that is constant throughout the day, right, that weighs on your mind is going to elicit the down regulation, right? But those short bursts of stress is that's why sprinting has been known to increase testosterone.
I've seen a lot of that talked about recently too. That's starting to get a real push.
Yeah,
so this short sprints and whatnot. But it's the same thing. Like people talk about hard physical stress.
Mm-hmm.
Like it makes the mental stress a lot easier, because it's a lot harder to think about the mental bullshit. It's a lot harder to think about the bills you're trying to pay when you can't breathe and you're sprinting, or you're trying to lift, or you're trying to do this physically exerting thing. It's like, I don't have time, the capacity to concern myself with the nagging wife or husband or whatever it might be. Yeah. It's like, so it kind of helps throw those things off a little bit, right? Throws your mental stress off of its game.
Yes.
And just kind of adding on to what Cruz was saying, I've gotten big into the autonomic nervous system. So your parasympathetic nervous system is your rest and digest state, and your sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight state. So he was talking about how we can induce acute stress to spike testosterone levels. But when stress becomes long-term, gradual, it's always high. You're running on high, Your high beta brain waves, and you're having this acute stress for extended periods of time, then you're ultimately lowering it. So I've gotten big into meditation. So where I can use this acute stress to go into this parasympathetic fight or flight state, spike my hormones, go into a meditation and bring myself back down into a parasympathetic rest and digest state, which is my body's homeostasis. So then I will be able to digest my food properly and get back into the cave as a caveman would do.
Well, I saw a video you posted, something it was talking about, and I wanted to ask Tony about this too, because you mentioned, and I really appreciated that you did this video and the way you said it and the way you brought it across. But you were talking about essentially, long story short, I'll probably butcher a little bit. But it was like, as lifters, people think about, all right, as soon as you get done with the workout, a quick digestible whey protein to feed your muscles. And you were mentioning that you were kind of experimenting with, all right, well, you wanted to try to hit it really hard, the physical exertion, and then give your body time to relax before you introduced something it needed to digest.
Correct.
And you even mentioned, which I really appreciate, you're like, look, I don't have any scientific studies to back this up, but I'm trying it and it feels good. And I think there is a certain level of anecdotal evidence that goes a long way. It goes back to each body's a little different, right? So each person's anecdotal experience and evidence it should matter if it's done and approached the right way. But I don't know how long you've been doing that, or how, have you noticed a difference in that post workout? All right, let's bring my body back to a calm state and then try to introduce the nutrients and that type of thing. Or
I started getting into researching the sympathetic and parasympathetic state years ago when I was bodybuilding. Ben Bukulski, I don't know if any of you guys know who he is, but he was big on it. So he kind of inspired me to get into it. I got out of it for a while, of the other avenues in my life. But last summer, I realized that I couldn't digest my food at all. As soon as I had so much chronic anxiety from just my life and all kinds of things happening that I had to like figure it out for myself what was happening. As soon as I would eat, I would have to like go to the bathroom. As soon as I would eat, I would have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, that's not good.
And I was in a state, I was in a fight or flight state all the time. I was constantly paranoid, high anxiety. So I had to start meditating and learning how to slow my body down. And then ultimately my digestion improved, which led me into researching the microbiome and just, what am I getting at? Just having better gut health in general. So that's what got me into it. And then when I linked up with Cruz, 2 months ago, I started experimenting. So it hasn't been long term, but I started experimenting with spiking testosterone levels in a sympathetic state, pulling back into the parasympathetic, and slowing down when you're eating too. Like I do this like method when I'm eating. I call it meditative eating. I'll take 5 deep breaths. I'll get really calm. And I'll consume my food slowly, because one of the guys in our group chat actually talked about how in Asia they eat with chopsticks just to slow down. Like all these things are prime factors.
You're not eating with a wooden spoon, just like shuffle.
Yeah. So all these things are prime factors. I very much believe to staying in this parasympathetic state of homeostasis where we can actually reestablish our hormones again and then spike them when we go out on that hunt again. Get back in that sympathetic state. He's like, right now, I'm only weight training intensively twice a week. And when I go to the gym, I'm going to the gym and it's everything I got. And then the other days I'm focusing on de-stress. So.
And I think a big key point there is that our body systems, it's especially when we're talking about the major systems like digestion, hormone regulation, those can't happen simultaneously effectively. So if you're digesting food all day, think about it. That's why testosterone and these other drugs work so well, because they allow you to eat more food and keep high hormone level. Whereas if as a natural, this is why when naturals eat a lot of food, they just really get fat for the most part, unless they have extremely good genetics. Okay,
right.
Obviously
that
Liver King.
Yeah, Liver King. Yeah,
He's been a topic of conversation.
Yeah.
I knew that dude was juicing out of his mind the second I saw him. Like, stop it. Just like 95% of CrossFit athletes, get the fuck out of here. I can see some juiced muscles when I see them.
Man. Let's forget about the drug usage. Let's even forget about that. And let's just say one thing. So he preaches all these primal tenets and all this stuff, right? And he's hardcore about it, right? And then he sells a protein bar that's full of fake stuff.
Bullshit.
Yeah, it's like
does he have like a product line like that? He's just bullshit.
Yeah, he's got a protein bar, protein powder, and I think he's got that liver. I don't know I bought one protein bar just to see what was in it, right? Or one package, I meant. And yeah, it was not good.
Got to get on that heart jerky.
I actually just finished it. That heart jerky's pretty tasty.
Oh, I'm going to have to try this.
Heart jerky.
Yeah, I think I did. Why? Did you want some? I'll buy some more. The kiddo likes it too. Yeah, and I can officially say I've had heart jerky, or have eaten heart. There's a local place, Canaan Center Meats, south of Worcester. I live off of jerky. That's probably one thing. Like I eat it. Like it's funny because I've been accidentally kind of fasting, but I've always been a snacker my entire life, and not like a massive snacker, just like all day, just a little here and there. Except when I was really into powerlifting and kind of bodybuilding, that it was, I have to eat my chicken and rice at the right time of the day, right?
Man, that's hormonal castration right there. Yeah. Chicken and rice.
Well, I didn't have to worry about hormonal castration at that point.
Yeah. Why not?
I was young. And no, but like I realized like now, like I can live off of a few pieces of beef jerky and like a little bit of string cheese until dinner time, like just to give my body just enough. Like I'll wake up. I usually like 2 hard-boiled eggs before I go to the gym. And then it's like, all right, I'll eat a couple of beef jerky. Like I'll snack on some jerky throughout the day. And then it's like, usually then about late in the afternoon, my body's like, okay, I'm ready to fucking eat something here, bro. And then I'll eat, very high protein, dinner.
Red meat.
Yeah.
from
It's,
the
yeah, just
cattle we buy.
a giant chunk of steak or whatever it is, like a big old bowl. Like I'll probably eat like 1,200, 1,500 calories of just meat and fat and chicken or whatever it is. And it's like, and then it's funny you mentioned the gut health thing, because I'll go to the bathroom barely once a day. And it's like, oh, I guess my body's actually like using this.
That's how we're supposed to eat.
Right?
I mean, think about it. Like, fruit is easily available so that you can have the snack.
As you're
And
chasing down that caribou or whatever it is.
It's quick. It's quick energy so that you can hunt. And then once you hunt, then you have the big meal. Like so what you're doing, like, that's essentially how we're supposed to eat, is like small, like something small, and then you have your big dinner.
Yeah, I always used to think it was bullshit, this whole like intermittent fasting, blah, 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 whatever it is. But then you really think about what intermittent fasting is, all right, well, we're going to snack on, or not, fasting is technically not eating, whatever. But like, to me, it was like, all right, I like to snack on those little things until we catch our meal.
Mhm.
And then it's made me feel really good. And I've really cut out a lot of just going back to the, like, let's try to eat just real food. Let's try to do that. That's the goal. Like if I can have 90% of my food just be real food, it feels awesome.
Yeah.
Like, so I think that's the point where it comes back to like my anecdotal evidence piece, where I'm sorry, you can have all the stats and whatever you want, but I've done this, I've done that, I've done this, I've tried this, I've tried this. And anecdotally, this is the one that makes me feel the best. So sometimes I think we tend to discard anecdotal evidence too easily coming from somebody.
Well,
doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
That's why I discard it so much.
Yeah.
That's why I get so discarded, because it does vary case to case. So like, in the next year, for example, because we're going to be testing our hormones, like me and him could have completely different outcomes. Do I think that they're going to mirror pretty closely? Yeah, I think so. Just because we're both doing the same exact thing, but still, he might have more upregulation than me, or it might happen at different times. Or you know what else I'm expecting? I'm expecting there to be because testosterone is not something like, oh, you have your natural test is at 800 nanograms per milliliter. Oh, it's just that all the time. Like, no, that's not how it works.
That's not how hormones work.
No. So like you might be at that at 8 in the morning, and then by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you're down to 400. Right. So we might take this test and be at, I don't know, 150, 200, right? And then the next test we take, we might get lucky 3 months later and be at 400, right? But then the next test might be 200 because of stress in our life, whatever the case may be. So I kind of want to see how that works too, like as far as, the swing of the hormones. So, but I think that's why anecdotal evidence is tossed aside so much, because there's so much variance where, you say it works for you and I'm just like, oh, okay, whatever, buddy. You know what I mean?
But if you can find what works for you, and
then it clicks though.
Then it clicks.
Then
you're
you're
okay,
like,
this is
oh.
what works for me. But then also, I think to me, if nothing else, it should encourage people to, okay, go out and do your own experimentation.
They want the answers though.
Yeah. Well, there's no universal answers, right? But the last thing you should do is always trust the experts and trust the science. No, like do your own science.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you got to do the science, you have to do science correctly,
yeah.
Which is, formulate a plan, see what happens. And then did the outcome would reflect what you expected? No. Okay. We'll do another science experiment then. Not just, well, then it doesn't work. Like, or, well, I guess I'll just trust the experts. My macros should be, 40, 40, 20 or whatever it is. Like everyone has these little different balances that you have to figure out particularly when you're talking about your own body.
Mm-hmm.
Who should know better what your body likes and dislikes than you? Granted, there's some obvious ones that, hey, if you drink a liter of soda combined with a liter of fucking vodka a day.
Liter of cola.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's going to be some things that like, hey, if you, smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day, I think we can universally say that's probably not healthy for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But like, you still have to understand your own body to a certain extent to be able to find out what it likes and what it doesn't like. You know what I mean? Like lactose intolerance. You should probably understand that. You should probably stay away from, dairy products then.
Well, another thing too about the experts that you mentioned is that what we fail to realize, or what other people fail to realize, is that the experts don't have control over their subjects the entire time. So, you know what I mean? They still have lives, unless it's a true experiment and they're really...
Unless it's an experiment by the CIA.
Yeah. Yeah. But...
They might have control.
They got a little bit of control there.
So these results they get, you don't really know how skewed they are, so really it's in your best interest to maybe take some of that information and apply it to yourself,
to your own science experiment.
Yes, exactly. Right? It's like take information that makes sense, obviously, and because for every study that says that it works, there's a study that says it doesn't work. Right. So you have to have discernment.
Yeah.
Weird. And then you just apply it to yourself and see if it works.
Yeah. How's that? I noticed. I think it was you, or was it you? Someone's been eating raw liver. Speaking of Liver King,
we both do.
Yeah. How is that? Because I've seen that. I've heard people talk about it. Have you anecdotally noticed anything by doing that at this point? Like, is there any like instant? Not obviously. I know it's not going to be instant.
I beg to differ.
So, is it?
Yeah,
is it instant? You notice an instant?
So I think I understand. So based off of the weeks of doing it, I understand why animals go for the liver. There is this, and I don't know if it's the amount of like vitamin, but like it's like taking a vitamin shot. It's like like you take it and you're just like I compare it to like whenever we dropped A-bombs.
and draw 50.
And you're just like, you're just like you get that like it's almost like this like feeling of like euphoric almost. But it almost feels like it's energy though. So it's like it's not like it's like you're gonna go bench something. You know what I mean? To a lesser degree. Not the same as the Android 50.
Is that just crazy high in the B vitamins?
I think that I think that's what it comes down to. I think that's really what it is.
And those get cooked out of it if you cook it versus if you eat it raw, or what's the? Because I never took the Liver King deep dive or like any of that like realm. To be honest,
didn't subscribe to the 9 tenets.
I did. I saw this guy and I heard that he was like proclaiming to be clean and natural, and I was like, "Fuck off."
Yeah.
I was like, I don't. Everything you say now is just because I can look at you and go, "No, you ain't."
Yeah,
no, you ain't.
Do you guys sprinkle any bile on your liver like I think the Comanches used to do that?
Yeah, I've heard of that. I've heard that too. Yeah.
I'd be interested in looking into it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because I've also dived into utilizing bone broth too. Yeah. Because, what did our ancestors do? They utilized the bones, they ate the organs, they ate the meat, so I'm making my own bone broth. I'm eating the liver and I'm also eating the meat. And I feel my gut health is improving and that ultimately improving my hormones too. So what do we do now? We go get the finest steak or the best cheeseburger. We've almost in a sense lost respect, I think, for the animals that we're consuming as a whole here in Western civilization. So I'm just trying to bring that back. And I think that's going to have great output for our hormones if we do so.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, just the venture that I've had the last few years of just trying to really focus on eating real food. I just, whatever it might be, is there's a marked difference when you eat something that's just not raw as in like uncooked, but just raw food. You're pure meat. You know where it's coming from. There's no additives and bullshit, and there's just something different about it that you can feel it. Now, like if you've ever gone down that path and kind of cut out, processed foods, and I know it sounds so cliche, like, oh, cut out processed foods, but it's because it makes a giant difference. Mm-hmm. Because the biggest difference I've noticed is it's kind of like the saying of like, people, they don't realize how shitty they feel because they always feel like shit. And you don't realize how good you feel until you get you don't realize how good you feel until you get a cold or you get sick or you get the flu and you're like, fuck, this sucks. Down for 3 days, your temperature, blowing snot out of your face, this, that, whatever. Same thing with your diet, right? I would imagine you've experienced like you eat this real food and it's like, yeah, I feel good. And then you go like out to dinner with somebody and eat like processed ish food, or like you swing like, hey, the only thing that's out here to eat, I'm on a road trip and I need to eat something. The only thing that's out here is fucking Wendy's. Well, I'll get a chicken sandwich. It's got to be somewhat healthy, right? And then you eat it. It's like, God, I feel like a fucking turd for like 4 hours. Like, what did I just put in my body? And you realize when you have those experiences, it's like, oh, okay. Now it's like, I get it and I can see it and I know it's coming. We're like, oh, do you want to go get some food? It's like, well, where are you going? We're going to Subway. No thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe Chipotle. I could maybe because it's mostly real food. Like okay, but like man, just eating that processed food. It's like now it's like I know how that shit's gonna make me feel because I've been there. Like once you've taken it out of your diet.
And go ahead.
We've experienced a rather similar phenomenon with artificial sweeteners and how artificial sweeteners just spike the cravings. Because this is like how I've dived into the intuitive eating that I was mentioned earlier. And are we actually hungry or are we just craving? And we've noticed, and I believe Cruz can vouch for this as well. Once we pulled these artificial sweeteners out, that's in like just a lot of the supplements, just like a lot of the garbage supplements, and not saying that they're all bad, but there's so many of them that are just not mindfully
not good
concocted,
yeah, right,
Yeah. So, and like some of these supplements, with all these artificial sweeteners are actually spiking cravings from my experience. But I don't have like the scientific behind it, but I'm very aware of, like nutrition is my thing. And I'm always listening to my body and my subconscious while I'm eating, like trying to understand what my body's asking for, if it's craving, if it's nourishment, whatever. So, yeah, I think those are limiting us a lot when it comes to how much we're eating is substituting sugar with artificial sugar, thinking it's better because there's no calories, but it's ultimately making us hungrier.
Yeah. Cause there's still something there. That's
Something
why
there.
I will be the first one to admit that I have not vices necessarily, but there's still two things that like on my list of like, I'll enjoy that I know that's like, oh, this probably isn't helping me. Obviously one of them is whiskey. And like, I won't do like the super duper loaded sugar ones, but energy drinks, like, I like to like, there's not like the sugar and everything else, but there's still stuff in there that I don't know how to pronounce this shit.
You should just start carrying around the pouch full of raw liver.
Maybe that's what it is. I guess I just got to carry. But I think it may be
black coffee.
Yeah, I like coffee too.
That's what I drink.
Yeah, I like coffee too. I will do that and I'll just do black coffee. But those are like the things I'm like, all right, I know it's probably not the best for me, but I guess it's to that point of, all right. Sometimes you're not going to get away from everything. Could I? Yeah. So I'm self-admitting here, but when you were talking about that, it kind of made me think, I wonder how many times like people, I hear people that are trying to lose weight or, they're trying to, go on a diet journey and they eat that piece of cake and they're like, I just felt like so mentally defeated afterwards because I broke and I ate the piece of cake and I felt like such a piece of shit, blah, blah, whatever. And it's like, I wonder how much of that is, yeah, mentally destroying yourself because you broke your diet because you're trying to lose weight. But how much of that is, no, that piece of cake just made you feel like shit, like physiologically. And maybe that's part of it too. Like, yeah, that crap just makes you feel like crap when you eat it, like, oh, maybe that's part of it too.
I wouldn't be too hard on yourself though. Cause like we have something to lose. That's why we're going. You know what I mean? Like we have, there's, that's what made this so easy to like just do overhauls because there's no other option.
Right.
We're not going back to TRT. So this is what you got to do.
Okay, 2 questions. When you were on, were you doing the drug tested or the not drug tested meets? For powerlifting, like, do you do meets, like powerlifting meets, right?
Yeah.
So were you doing the drug testing or the non-drug testing? Were you cycling that shit out?
Oh no, come on now. I'm moral.
I would never do that.
No,
okay, I'm just
listen,
asking because I have competed in powerlifting meets, and it's always like, oh, like you know,
Well, it's like, or like the Tour
I'm
de
small
France,
yeah.
No.
where like you
Listen-
realize all of them were doping.
Listen.
So then how long do you wait until your next one that you are in the drug, like, could you do a drug-free meet now? Or like, what's the moral ground for that then?
Okay, so here's so a couple things. One, first of all, we didn't cycle off into a meet. We were blasting. I mean, I was throwing in the whole kitchen sink. But that's number one. So there was no drug tested. But now at this point, drug tested me. Okay, this is how I view this. One, we are never natty because we have used anabolic steroids. So two.
Can you tell that to the transgender community who wants men to compete against women?
Yeah.
Can we just mark that down?
Yeah, that's a whole.
I was thinking that, but I wasn't going to say it.
That's a whole nother thing. But
It's a whole different show.
Yeah. So I feel like it would be extremely, even though I feel like we are in a worse position than a natural lifter right now, because we're crashed. Okay. But there are some physiological things that will never go away.
Yeah.
There is muscle built that will never go away.
100%.
Okay. So, to answer your question, no. The only way that I would do a drug tested meet is to show someone that I'm truly, because like if I get to a point where I'm pulling numbers and they're like, oh, he got back on. No, watch. I'm going to show you. That would be the only way of doing it. It wouldn't be to beat somebody. It would be to show, look, what we're doing is working. Here's the drug test to show it. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. So in the future, you'll still be competing in like the regular, like the
Non-tested.
Tested.
Yeah, because it's only fair.
Me
No.
too.
I
okay.
applaud that because
Yeah.
that is, you don't see that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that there are
I'm
folks
sure.
like that,
sure.
but-
to your point, as someone who knows, as an adult, basically once I stopped growing, I'm a probably if I had never intensely lifted, power lifted, tried to bodybuild, put on weight along with all the other extracurricular activities, I'm like a $180, $185 average weight.
Same.
I'm about 5'11", $180.
Mhm.
Even when I take, during COVID, I probably took 6 months off of not doing anything. Basically didn't do a damn thing. Basically just got chubby, whatever. When I take giant breaks off and I haven't lifted nearly like what I used to. I used to do the same thing. I would go in 3 days a week and I'd be there for 2.5 hours. And it was supersetting the entire time. Just boom, 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 just going after it. And then I would take the other 4 days to help my muscles rebuild. So I haven't lifted like that in probably, I bet 7+ years. But even now, when I don't lift and I don't do anything, I still sit 215, 220, 40 pounds heavier than probably what my frame would naturally be, because so much has been built over that, 10-year time period of doing all the things, so like to your point, like when you do things to your body for such a certain amount of time period, when you're changing, your structure essentially internally, some of that stuff just doesn't disappear, right? There's still things that are built and that you carry along with you.
If you don't mind me asking, are you on TRT now?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Okay. So that's interesting because what I'm interested to find out is where I fall back to, because like, give you an idea, I got out of boot camp and I weighed 140 pounds.
Oh, I believe that.
At
That's a little different scenario there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But
yeah.
But even so, naturally, I got up to in the Marine Corps days before. So my first powerlifting meet was, it was untested and I was natural. So yeah, because I didn't know anything about it. But I squatted 515. And this was at 185 pounds. So I squatted 515, benched 385, and pulled 515.
That's pretty damn good.
So I'm kind of curious to see where my body weight falls back to. I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit higher than 185 just because of those changes that won't, go away. So probably, I don't know, maybe I'm 203 right now, so I don't imagine me losing too much more, maybe another 5-10 pounds maybe, but I imagine I'll sit somewhere between 190, 195, a little bit higher than where I would have been, because I feel like it's about, I don't know, maybe 5-10%, once you've stopped. Now, drugs might give you 20% while you're on, but now after coming off, you're not going to keep all that 20% added or whatever the case.
Well, I think a lot of it too, for because I've known a lot of people that have done PEDs, not even like at our TRT level, just straight PEDs, and they do them wrong, and it's always that story of, well, yeah, they gained 30 pounds, but then they lost it, and they're right back to where they started. I think a lot of that is just poor work ethic.
Everything
is just a lot. They didn't, their diet, everything. It was just, all it was everything they gained was just purely from that. Where I really tried to focus on still doing it the right way. There's people out there that still do it the right way and use, specifically just that extra testosterone, if nothing else, is just the recovery from it is, I think, a reason why a lot of people do it, and why I did it for probably as long as I did, was just the recovery and the energy levels, and just fucking feels good. Like, yeah, to have higher test levels, you just feel better, you recover faster, all those different things. But the strength and, some of the strength and some of the size, obviously it comes from the enhancement that you're getting there, but without the work ethic and the proper basis of the lifting techniques and the work and the diet and all those different things, it's really, I don't think most people that take steroids or whatever it is, really ever gain as much as they could from them, because they don't put the work in. But the people that do put the work in, once they get their shit balanced back out, like you're talking about, let's find our homeostasis here. There is a level that can be gained from that maybe not necessarily that a natural person couldn't gain, but it's going to take them a lot longer. You know what I mean? So I think it's just that little boost that people really, why a lot of people find it so intriguing, is it's like, man, like, it's a little cheat code if you use it right.
Yeah.
If you don't use it right, then it's a cheat code that goes away and everything comes along with it. I've seen a lot of those guys, or they end up with how many different side effects and health problems because they abused them or they didn't do them right. And they, you end up with terrible gyno and acne, all these different things that, like, it's, I guess to that point, it's like, I don't want to glorify any of those things, because it can really fuck your body up when you're starting to play with hormones.
Oh yeah.
If you don't do it right. I
would never suggest anyone to take anything, we kind of talked about this, like, there's these guys on Instagram, they're called the Trend Twins.
Oh geez.
Trend Bros.
Trend Bros, that's what it is.
That sounds like a terrible nickname.
Yeah. Yeah. So they are real huge proponents of taking Tren. Okay. And partially a joke, but it's obviously also true, because they are clearly using Tren. My thing is like, someone comes to me and is like, hey, Cruz, like, look, I want to break, Joe Sullivan's 220 squat record. Okay. Well, if you're capable, based on what you're telling me, like, yeah, you're going to probably have to use things. And that's just the reality of it, because he squatted 860 some pounds.
At 220?
At 220. No wraps. That's just sleeves.
Yeah. And sometimes genetics
sometimes, yeah.
You just can't do it. Like,
yeah, you can't
no matter how many performance enhancing drugs you push, you're never going to be whoever, any of the ultimate bodybuilders.
Yeah.
Arnold, Phil, any of those people, Jay Cutler, you're just not, those guys got genetics too. Sorry.
But if you're in the realm, or in a close proximity, yeah, you're still going to you're going to have to, if you want to be at that level, that's what you're going to have to do. Okay. And that's where we were at. We didn't, we got to an extremely high level. I mean, the numbers that we were pushing were extremely high for our weight class. I was 220 and he was 275. And I did do a couple meets at 242, but I was mainly a 220 lifter. So, but the thing is when you mentioned about people taking drugs and then losing everything, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, and it's going to be interesting because of what we're doing is the base that you had prior to. So the base that I didn't start using until I was 23, about to be 24. So I had a lot, and I told you the numbers at 185. I had a good amount of lifting base naturally. So where I fall back to is probably going to still be a lot higher.
Good.
Yeah, pretty good. I'll probably be pulling in the 600s. Let's just be real, So now someone else who just hops on for 6 months, a year, whatever the case is, with no background, they started lifting the day they injected, and then they stop injecting and they stop lifting.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to go back to
those are the guys I was talking about.
Yeah, those are the guys. They're going back to their baseline. That's all it is. All it is you're going back to whatever baseline, and you might be, the longer that you took it, the little bit higher you will be. You know what I mean? So the guy that took it for the 6 months, he's going to go right back to where he started. But we've used it for 8 years, 10 years, whatever. So we're going to actually be, or we're going to obviously be higher.
Yeah. You've layered some foundation there.
Yes.
Well, I think that's a lot of the view that the general public has too with like performance enhancing drugs, whatever they are, is that they think because they knew that guy that took him for a couple months and grew a pair of titties and he, and then he lost a bunch of weight and he was whatever. It's like, well, yeah, because he wasn't doing anything to begin with.
Lifestyle.
Yeah. He was just like, you can't just like, that's like pounding like 5 Red Bulls and, a liter of vodka and being like, yeah, I'm fucking undestroyable. And then the next day you're sleeping in your own vomit. Well, yeah, because you just pumped a bunch of shit into your body and you thought that was going to do something great for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not how it works. Like, you still have to have, the nutrition to feed your body. You have to have the work ethic to go in there, go in the gym and kill it for 2 hours or whatever. Like, you still have to have all those things, but it's just that it gives you that extra little bit that the normal person doesn't have. So to be able to layer that down.
Tony nailed it on the head earlier when he was talking about how fast our testosterone levels can come back up from a low level. You said mindset plays a role. And I've been thinking about that since you said that. I really do feel that that's a very high valued thing to think about is what is your mindset? Like there's like savage, just the word itself, like who has that mindset that they're going to do whatever it takes to get to where they're said to be. Not everybody's on the same level mentally.
Yeah. And stress too, like we talked about that. Stress obviously has a giant factor, not only in hormones, but just your life in general, right? Your attitude, your work ethic, all of that.
And because it'd be interesting to see too, because let's think about it this way. When is your peak strength? Like 35, I'd say, like roughly, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I know it's not 6 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
Because that's when I lift now, and it blows.
but is 35 the age where you have the highest testosterone? Probably not.
No.
You're starting to get that old man strength.
I was gonna say
that base layer, right?
Yeah. But I mean, at 30, that's when you start losing it, like that 1% to 2% of that total a year. So
now, and then where I question the total though is like, total isn't as important as free. Now, obviously, if your total gets affected, your free is probably gonna get affected as well. But that's a whole different thing. But my point is the fact that what we have to keep in mind is that testosterone isn't the thing that makes you strong. It definitely helps, 100%. But I'm pretty positive that I've met people in my life before using that had higher testosterone than me, just based off characteristics, and I was stronger than them. So, and it also plays a part in this, and I know you've attested this. There's guys that ran more than us that weren't as strong as us, right?
Oh,
and there was even times in my lifting career where I ran less and was stronger. So, the amount of hormone doesn't necessarily dictate your level of strength on a given time.
Oh, for sure. Well, it takes all the pieces of the puzzle, right?
Yeah.
You know, how stressed are you? What's your diet like? What's your sleep? What's your schedule? All the different things.
Sunlight,
Yeah.
Sunlight.
Yeah. All of those things, right?
which will definitely be something interesting for you guys to measure as this season's passed, to kind of see once you create that baseline again, like if sunlight's affecting levels that much.
Yeah. It's interesting because that's what I kind of, because like 3 months. So if we get one now, 3 months will be like the end of summer, and then another 3 months will be into
Right in the winter.
Yeah. So I do feel like that is going to play a factor. And I feel like that's whenever I talked about it, maybe peaking and then dropping again. And then what's eventually going to happen is it's just going to kind of go like this.
Yeah. What's your bottom baseline that?
Yeah.
Because can you increase that, right? What's the baseline?
Exactly.
That's the whole idea. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's interesting. Everything that we're doing is just, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Right.
You know?
But it sounds like an interesting journey that I'd definitely like to hear as it goes along. It's because, you know, we've talked about, even in like mental health, for instance, you know, there's times where you don't need a pill to help you get over what you're going through mentally. But sometimes, you know, that a little bit of medication can help you regulate and balance things out and kind of figure your shit out to get you where you need to be in your mindset. And, you know, thinking about, you know, psychological disorders and different things like that. But I think for most times, there's always things you can do naturally to help you out. But that doesn't say that anybody who takes any type of medication for anything, you know, oh, well, you shouldn't be doing that. Well, hold on. Like, there's obviously always situations for every single issue or every single problem or every single scenario you could lay out. And it's all dependent on the person, situation, what's really going on. Like, so it's not to say that anybody who is, you know, taking a type of medication is like, oh, like, you could do that naturally. Well, maybe you could, maybe you couldn't.
Yeah.
But taking that journey for yourself to go, okay, what can I do to help me live a little bit more healthy and different things. I know I had someone, speaking of medication, because I wanted to ask about this, at least to Tony, because I told the person I would, not just because, but I'm interested. The question I asked you the other day, Tony, was it the BPC
157?
So I don't even know exactly what that is, but I did want to bring that because it was like, I'm curious about this and I don't know exactly what it is, but I know
Peptide?
Yeah. So somebody asked me about this and I was like, I don't know. Cause it's been a little while since I've been out of the realm of looking at additional like medical type interventions for certain things. But I didn't know if you could, Tony, if you could give a little breakdown of what that, cause I know you were familiar with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's something I actually prescribe. So
Okay.
it's I think it's like a pentadecapeptide. So it's like a 15 amino acids. It's secreted in like gastric juices. And so that's kind of how they originally derived it. So endogenously we have some, and they basically synthesized it and started using it for like gastric ulcers or like irritable bowel. And then they found that like downstream, it has like these angiogenic effects. And so it basically forms new like vasculature and like vessels. So you're getting blood flow to other areas.
So that's why people use it for like recovering from like injuries and different things.
Yeah. And I think there's a nitric oxide component to it. And I think there's like a cell migration component to it. But yeah, I mean, it's they don't know a ton about it. And kind of what we've gotten into, because it does have an oral, like it works in an oral form, but there's an injectable form too. And going back to what you were saying about kind of the balance of empirical versus anecdotal, all patients say that they swear like the injectable, like at that site injection works better. And I don't have any, I don't have any articles to back that up, but I have to listen to it. You have to take it into consideration.
Right.
But yeah, it's a pretty effective tool. I like to use it like post-surgery or for acute injuries. Some people say that, it has some chronic uses, but for me, for as short as possible.
So kind of like a similar thing to like cortisone shot, cortisol. Which one?
Cortisone, yeah.
Cortisol.
Cortisol. No, cortisol.
That's the like bug bite stuff, right? But kind of a similar approach to.
So that's
at least
just
an applicability for using it like a one time, like letting this thing kind of do its job.
So
in a short term.
Short term. That's about
Right.
that's about the closest analogy I would make to that. So as like the other one, anti-inflammatory, and you don't want to use that one for a long period of time. So.
Right. I don't. Do you know anything about that, or any like kind of natural thoughts you've had for that, or like I guess going back to one of the biggest things that I've noticed with testosterone, exogenous, is the recovery effect, and I guess that's kind of it ties into like the rebuilding and the recovery effect about that is how do you look at naturally kind of letting giving your body the most it can to repair and recover from injuries and all that stuff.
This is great because it's about what I was going to go into. So because it kind of goes into he'll cover like suppressors, like what is suppressing our testosterone and hormones, and I'll go into what I call them the shots. Okay, because I'm replacing the shot.
Okay.
So they're action indicators, or it's biohacking mechanics. Okay, so and I've obviously all this is in testing, but essentially, using already known recovery methods like cold plunges, Epsom salt baths, even fasting has known. Now you have to fast for an extended period of time, but it's cell regeneration. Okay, and same with the cold plunging. So, and whenever we do our deadlift peak here, because we're going to be doing a deadlift meet in July, I'm going to play around with a little something where basically in leading up to the meet, whenever we start doing our real heavy, I'm going to pull some of the recovery measures out, right? And so we train almost in a fatigued state, and then prior to the event, reinsert all of these action indicators to upregulate, almost like we're hopping on natural anadrol.
Gotcha.
To upregulate recovery leading into the meet. So essentially, to answer your question, is I think a big thing is like for the individual that you spoke before, that if you're not going to take a medication, then you need to exert an action. All medication is, oh man.
I like that.
Okay.
You're trying to fix something. If you're not doing it, you need to exert action either, right?
Yes.
Like that. That's nice. I like that.
So, man, I'm going to get some riffraff from Tony probably and other people, but
give it to him, Tony.
I don't like to prescribe medications if I don't have to.
So okay. So medication to me is someone who doesn't want to take, they don't want to adjust their lifestyle. So we're going to provide you with this thing. Now, I do agree with you. There are certain situations where maybe the individual can't do these things. I don't know, but for most individuals, you could insert an action and reduce the, like for a big one, like blood pressure medication, no, we don't
exercise.
Yeah.
How we start there, right? If you're not, I guess it's the point is if you're not exercising, maybe that should be your first step.
Yeah.
Right.
And then there's other things. So basically the key thing to that is no medication requires action. And that's basically what we're doing is we removed our medication. We don't have testosterone anymore.
Attack it with action first.
Attack it with action. Yep. And then you just have to make sure, and I'm going to let you dive into this. You just have to make sure that your action isn't negated by any disruption, because especially with something as fickle as testosterone, how it goes up and down all over the place. You have to, every action that you take, you have to make sure that it's not negated.
Right. And you can't go on a mile really slow walk and then eat a whole entire pie. You're like, oh, I'm good. I balanced them out. It doesn't work that way.
No. So, how's you want to dive into the disruption?
What were you want me to continue on with?
Just basically, what things in our daily life that kind of disrupt our hormones, and we kind of covered it like with the processed foods and stress and things like that, but like kind of like how we need to like avoid certain things so that these action indicators they work basically.
I mean, ultimately we've pretty much covered a lot of this already, but just removing extensive oxidative stress is going to be huge, because if we're stressed out for chronic periods of time, then it's ultimately going to take effect on our hormones. And also just mindfulness and just slowing down in life and being more aware of our breath, like, because we're so overstimulated with like cell phones and schedules and appointments and goals, and we're moving at this very fast state. Like, as human beings, we're not supposed to be doing this much. I really don't believe we're supposed to be, cooking our own food, farming the land, whatever. So slowing down essentially and just focusing on smaller things are going to help reduce this oxidative stress that we have induced from this rat race lifestyle that we're living. And just as we talked a little bit about earlier, just removing like, the fake soaps, the fake deodorants. I personally, I only use soap like once or twice a week, and it's the Dr. Squatch brand. Okay. But I've noticed like the more I pull out of my diet, like the processed foods, and the less stress I have, I don't smell bad. Like I feel like my hormone, like I don't feel like I have a stench anymore, from ridding myself from a lot of these things. So that's another thing. And I really feel like we've talked about most of the suppressors, but the biggest thing is just stress management. That is the biggest thing. That's
massive. So. And it's funny because as you're mentioning it, just recently we've, like I said, we're slowly over time, like trying to just go back to just real stuff, right? Just real things that aren't just, these chemical compounds. I have no idea what they are. We've tried trying different deodorants and different things like I've worked with, like I've been a metal worker and woodworking and doing all these things my entire life. And it's like, when I make knives, and before, like if I wasn't wearing a respirator when I'm grinding metal or welding, all these different things.
I'm a welder, so
yeah. So like you're taking a shower, like you blow your nose the next day and you're like, oh, that's like just straight metal. That's probably not super healthy for me, right? That can't be good. Just breathing in metal and dust fumes and all these other things. And it's like,
maybe a little copper would be good.
Yeah. Yeah. but then I realized like, oh, one of the top ingredients and like the things that we put underneath like our soft flesh in our armpits and just sits there all day is aluminum.
Uh-huh.
I can't imagine why heavy doses of aluminum, like getting absorbed by my skin, is healthy. Like I can't imagine. Like I haven't seen any studies that are like, hey, guess what? Grab some aluminum dust and just rub it all over your skin. It'll be great for you. Like I don't think that's, what I mean. So getting away from some of those things, I've realized I've seen it now where, because we've kind of taken, and she makes soap. She makes the soap that we use. It's all home done, whatever, without any like additional like scented stuff that has compounds. It's all like, if it is, it's like essential oils that she puts in it. But using that and like using different deodorants that don't have a bunch of chemicals and like metals and shit in them, where now the only time I realize like, oh, like I kind of stink is if I'm like just pouring from sweat in the gym, and it's like, all right, well, I'm, excreting all of these whatever toxins along with my sweat. Like you're going to smell a little bit, or when acute moments of stress, where if I'm at work and I am like in a meeting or my blood pressure gets shot through the roof because someone pisses me off or whatever it is, it's like, oh, okay, I'm a little stinky now. But it's like, it's stress though. It's so innately tied to stress that it still surprises me, where I'm like, man, like I don't stink. Like I don't do these things. And all of a sudden it's like one day I'm like, man, what? I'm like over here just like, whoa. And it's like, oh, I just went through an extremely stressful situation. It's like, I feel like a fucking skunk over here, where I'm like, you put me in stress and I just start spraying and I smell bad. Like it is weird how much stress is so tied to our physiological responses. And I think a lot of times people don't realize that, where it's because we're, like you said, staring at a screen all day. We're so engaged with the rat race that it seems like we've brought in our bodies into this physiological state that's always just stress to the max. And we rarely sit down and just slow down.
And what you're saying, I like this, and it's back to the autonomic nervous system and the sympathetic state, the fight or flight state, and autonomic. Well, I can't say it, but this is anonymous, so it's out of your control. So it's non-governable.
Yeah.
So these actions that we're making in this sympathetic fight or flight state may or may not really be our own free will if we're chronically stressed, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
You
just
ever-
another add-on to what you were saying.
Yeah, it's,
You ever get mad at somebody and then afterwards you realize, oh crap, like I didn't mean to do
I
that.
probably pushed it a little too far.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like I probably took that sentence like 3 words too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now there's one thing that because we definitely do want to manage stress and everything, but something that we've both realized is high blood pressure equals stress or equals strength. So hear that again. High blood pressure equals strength. So what I've realized is that in order to be at your strongest, your blood pressure needs to be elevated to some degree. So whereas you want to be relaxed most of the time, however, when you go into training,
Gotta get amped up.
you want to get that blood pressure spiked so you can be strong. So it's like it's balancing that ability to have that. So
Well, it's like the grandma that picks the car up off of the grandkid or something like that, right? Where you
Yeah.
hear like the 60-year-old lady like lifts half of a car to like because her kid's pinched underneath it. It's like, well, I'm sure her blood pressure was through the ceiling,
Yep.
right? And their stress at that point in time was extremely elevated, which make your body do crazy things.
Yeah, so I think that's also like why, and we're gonna dabble into this, is doing like cold plunges prior to training. Now there is some studies on this. However, I think they were done in China, I'm pretty sure. But they had shown some significant level increases. Now, granted, how long those increases lasted, that's to be determined. But
Right.
but it has shown it. So that's going to be something else that what I equate that to is like test no ester, the day of the meet. You know what I mean? So the day of the meet, whenever we do it in July, the meet's not too far from my dad's house actually. So I'll set up my cold plunge there, and we can just plunge in before we go deadlift.
There you go.
Test no ester, baby. Natural version.
You're crazy.
Well, I am extremely interested to see how this goes for you, and I'm really excited that we were able to catch. I'm glad you reached out that we're able to catch you like in the beginning of this because I'm very interested in seeing how it goes, and I'd love to be kept up to date and down the road.
Yeah,
come
absolutely.
back and hang out and chill again.
Bring our lab work too.
Yeah, that'd be super awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, it's we're already 2+.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So unless there's something that someone else wants to add in, you've given me a lot of food for thought.
I have a
That
question.
yeah.
So, say your lab work come back. You guys talked about changing different things, and how do you decide what to change and what to manipulate? Obviously, like you eat the liver and you like can feel that difference, but you're doing a lot of things that are different. How do you know what to change and what to adjust, other than just you know what I mean? How do you
Yeah, because it kind of seems to go on
Crossover.
wholesale.
Yeah, like the intuition part versus
Yeah,
the
good-
lab
yeah.
results. Like, so how are you going to decide what you want to start manipulating first to make changes?
So I think it's going to start with the things that you don't. So like for example, the cold shower you feel immediately, like you actually feel it, and it's a release in dopamine. It's not necessarily a direct test increase, but dopamine and tests are like cousins. So they're kind of closely related. Now I think that will actually increase over time, over a longer period of time. So I would, to answer your question, it'd be the things that you don't necessarily have that response. So for example, I feel red light therapy. Like you feel it like down there, like you feel things tingling, you know what I mean? So like that would be something that I probably wouldn't throw out, out of the way. Now, things that may maybe changed, like maybe the first thing I think would be like the types of foods. Like it's gonna be whole foods, but like maybe for him, he needs to do leaner meats and have his fats sourced elsewhere through oils or something. So it might be more changes like that. That the only problem with that is that's going to have to go over a long period of time. So that might take more than just the 2 blood panels to actually figure out if that's changing or not.
Right.
But I think that's the thing. I think it would start with things that you don't feel that would change out first before you would change something that you actually are having. Because regardless if the cold showers increase testosterone or not, I actually feel better from it. So like, why would I remove that?
Regardless.
Yeah. Why would I remove that? So I think it's going to be the things that you're like, I don't know if this is working or not. So let's take it out and see based off the last panel. Let's see if anything adjusts.
So you kind of hitting you guys are kind of hitting the reset button entirely. And then, all right, let's start from scratch and go from here.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically.
Well, I mean, it might as well, right? If you're going to go for something at this point, might as well try it all.
Yeah, exactly. So,
it.
because I think the big thing is like, right now we have, so like everything that's implemented right now, that's essentially the baseline. So those are the things that we've basically determined, like, these are the things that are going to be truly effective. Okay. Now, to each individual, how effective they're going to be. Now that is going to be determined in the long haul.
Right.
If that makes sense.
No, it
But
makes
like,
sense.
but everything right now, I don't really see a reason to take anything out necessarily, unless it's like particular diet things.
Right.
Tony, I have a question for you. So a female, on average, their hormone cycle is like 28 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the male's like hormone cycle?
Oh, I've never heard of them having
Or
like
is
a
it
true hormone cycle.
So I've read that it's like every 24 hours. Like, I don't know if that's true.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I don't.
Yeah.
If you're gonna call it something, yeah, maybe.
Okay.
I don't know if they really have a
So
like
when
a
you-
cycle per se,
Okay.
especially based on everything like we were saying, how the levels can fluctuate so differently based on, like you said, stress, sunlight, diet, activity levels.
But I would say, generally speaking, your test is going to be the highest in the morning.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, yeah, so the 24-hour makes the most sense. You would cycle, you'd be highest in the morning, drop to the low in the evening, and then spike back up again throughout the night. Sleep would be the increaser.
At work, we have to draw labs for testosterone replacement, and they have to be done like in the morning.
Mhm.
So they have to be done fasting to prove like that they actually need it. So I didn't know if a woman has to go in on like week 3 to get labs done, if that was something you guys needed to consider when you go get your labs done, or if it's just like baseline, do it fasting in the morning. So then, you're kind of on the same.
Yeah, I would say morning fasted is that's going to be the thing. I don't know if like time of the month necessarily would impact it, or if it was I guess because it could be a monthly thing. Like it could be like more than monthly. Like it could be every 3 months. It
depends on what your schedule
if
looks
you're
like, right?
yeah, like well, yeah, because like we're looking at the daily fluctuation, but there could be a larger fluctuation on a bigger scale that we're it's just not studied enough to determine.
When is your phase of training going to change that too? Like if you're at a heavier stage versus, right? Because
That's
there's a lot of things to consider.
That's where the factors are going to be, because another thing too is like, it might be slightly opposite than what you think too. Like your strength phase might actually be where your testosterone is at your lowest, especially if you're dialing into a weight class, because, you're going to be, anytime you are in a caloric deficit, it's going to impact your hormones.
Right.
So yeah, that's what makes this so tough, is because there's so many factors. I think it's just like managing as much as we possibly can and just looking at the overall score at any given time.
Yeah.
As long as we don't kill the cat.
And then the fact that just the blood test, that's literally that snippet of time that you're getting. And I didn't know. So for females, sometimes they'll do like the Dutch hormone test. I don't know if you guys have kind of dove into that,
No.
but they do like a dried urine, and it's over like the course of the day, so you can see the changes in hormones. I've never, so I don't know enough about those. Like my knowledge of those is very cursory, but they'll do those for the females. So I would imagine they could probably do them for males, and they're looking at cortisol levels and prolactin levels, and so that might be something you guys could consider as well, so that you had not just that snapshot, that you had a slightly longer period of time.
Because honestly, that's what I was concerned about. It's just like, because when you go get your labs drawn, you don't get to pick the time.
Yeah.
Or I mean, all the time.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So like what if my peak levels is at 7 a.m. and it drop? I mean, I don't know how quickly they drop, but if I can't get in till 10 or 11, well then, I could have dropped 100 points or 150 points, So that's where it gets a little tricky.
There's so many variables.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would be interesting to see if we could get that done. So.
And to further your previous questions about extensive measures we would take if we didn't get the hormone rebound that we were searching for, mine is spending more time outdoors in nature, because I do it now, but not extensively. I would organize my life as a single guy with an apartment without many responsibilities to spend a lot of time outdoors, away from society, in a natural setting, and see how that
Do
can
you
balance.
stand barefoot in the grass?
I do. I ground almost
Yeah.
every day.
Yes.
Do you sun your butthole?
I have before.
Not opposed.
It's hard
to it.
finding places like
be able
to
to
do
sun
that
your
when you
butthole.
live in
Arrested.
Ashland.
It really is. Yeah.
I do want to put a disclaimer out there that we do need to say to people. One, I don't think everyone is going to be able to do what we're doing, because we are both single. We both can do whatever we want.
Right.
I have businesses, so like there is a level of responsibility there, but I don't have any, like, it's really easy for me to do this, and there's no other considerations really. Same with him. So like other people, you may not yield the same results as us because you may have different life stress
Constraints, yeah.
Yeah. So that is something to consider. If someone were to come to me and be like, "Hey, Cruz, like I want to stop TRT, and do what you're doing," like, okay, but let's take into consideration all that your life requires.
Right.
So that is something, that's got to be put out there.
For sure. Well, I think it goes back to the earlier conversation we had about just like exercising in general, or lifting, or bodybuilding, whatever it is, where, I used to have people come up to, hey, man, I really like 99.9% of the time that as a guy that's strong, or, bodybuilding or whatever in the gym, you're always approached by other guys, right? It's not like my wife always be like, oh, I bet you get hit on all the time. No. Well, yeah. By other dudes.
Yeah.
They're like, oh man, I love your rear delts. How did you, I want to grow how do you do that? Well, it's like, it's a little,
Your bench is crazy.
yeah, it's going to be a little different for me than it is for you, but still, like, let's start baby stepping, right? I want to lose a bunch of weight, right? Well, what do you eat? Do you know even like how many calories you eat in a day? Well, yeah, I'm about normal. Well, no, that's not what I asked. Like, do you eat 5,000 or do you eat 1,000? Because a person that's 100 pounds overweight could be eating a 3,000 calorie surplus, or they could also be in a negative 1,000 calorie. Like, they could be in a deficit, and their body's just so in shock and stress that their body's just trying to survive. So like, yeah, you might be in a calorie deficit, but maybe you're in too much of a calorie deficit, and your body's trying to hold on to every little bit that it has. So you don't have any energy, you feel like shit, and you're still gaining weight.
And your hormones are crashing.
And your hormones are fucked. Right. You know what I mean? Like, so like, it's not the same for everybody, but that's why it goes back to there's a little bit of anecdotal evidence that matters for everybody, because even you said you guys are doing close to the same thing, but you might have completely different results once you get down the line, because your bodies are just a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I think it's phenomenal. Also I saw I can't remember what it's called now. The masculine
conviction.
Conviction. Are you doing an event or anything soon? I saw, because you haven't pimped that yet.
Yeah. So
would you like to?
Yeah. So it's sprints and stakes for testosterone. So basically, I got a laser time sprints with. I have also a vertical jump pad. Have you seen those before? So
a pad?
Yeah, you stand on it, and basically when you jump, it measures the time that you're in the air, so it can tell how high you jumped when you land.
What if I float more than other people? That's interesting. I haven't seen those. That's cool.
So basically, you sign up, and the links in my bio, and you sign up. You get a stake. You come out, sprint, get your time sprint, vertical jump, and I make you a stake. So, and I'm pretty good at making stakes.
That sounds like a good time. Sounds like I'd pull a muscle. I haven't sprinted or jumped really hard in a long time. I used to be.
I'm gonna get a waiver.
Yeah, you're definitely gonna have to.
You're gonna get a waiver.
Sounds like a good segue into BPC.
Well, I gotta tell you what, guys, I very much appreciate you guys coming on, and like I said, keep me posted because I'm extra curious now just to see how it turns out and how you guys are feeling and what you find that helps versus not, and all the different things. And I hope those shirts don't have polyester in it because they might. If so, I could. You go get you a hat that does it or something.
It's okay.
Get you some hemp ones.
Yeah. That's a whole different topic too.
Well, I mean, I think what we should do, man, is like, so I imagine I got my blood work from Merrick Health. So I think it takes like 7 to 10 days, something like that. But what we should do is like next month, rejoin. We'll bring our blood work and, we can have Doc over here go over it.
He'll look at it.
Like
He'll knows what it.
Yeah, I because I want, I know basically what I'm looking for, but there's other things I'd like him to look at just to see if what he makes of it. So
Yeah. The other thing I think would be cool, since you're so in tune with nutrition, is like certain supplements that we know work well. Like, what foods could you actually get those supplements from? Like, if if we were getting into like the anti-inflammatories like quercetin, or if you were looking at things that stimulate like endogenous glucagon like peptides, because you guys want to hit that satiation, like how do we get hesperidin? How do we get naringin? Like it'd be cool to like send you a list of some of these like supplements I know the work, because I see the labs, I see things change on them. The cholesterol with the red yeast rice, or before you ever get into statins or anything, the bergamot citrus, niacin, things like that. Like, what foods have higher contents of these to be able to suggest to people, hey, this is going to help reduce some inflammation, and anything that's going to be beneficial downstream to gut health, liver health, balancing and optimizing hormones.
Absolutely, I would love that.
Yeah,
I would dive into it very deeply.
He definitely would.
He definitely. Me not so much, but he definitely would.
Yeah, me, I'm just.
It's so cool to see you guys passionate about something. Like, somebody passionate about anything is really cool, but like, this is, I don't know, it's interesting to like, you can see it, you can change, like you can see it, you can feel it, and then you can share that with it. It's pretty cool.
Well, I think the real cool thing is the fact that, I don't know very many guys that are going to take the risk like this. They're going to hop off TRT and do this, like this is, there's so many levels, like mentally, physically, everything. There's just so much to this. I think the biggest thing that you see, and I'm sure like, what you recognize is the fact that we have a lot to lose.
Yeah, and I will say this: there's a lot of people that don't understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But there is, when you are at a level we've talked about, feeling like Superman running through walls, and it just makes you feel good. Think about the one thing, whatever it is that makes you just like physically feel good and makes you feel really great. Like whether it's your cup of coffee in the morning, like you hear these people like, I can't survive without my coffee in the morning because coffee gets me going, and if I don't have it, I feel like shit. Kind of the same thing, except much more intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I will say one thing though. I think we have a lot to gain too.
Oh yeah.
Well, see, there's that optimism. You got to have a little bit of that too, right?
Yeah. I think a big thing that I'm excited to see is the fact that, for so many years we relied on drugs for strength. Even though we were strong, we still relied on them to a certain degree. I think we're going to surprise ourselves with how much strength we're going to have. The number wise, it may not be exactly where we want it, but I think we're going to be a lot stronger than what people realize.
It's all about being that savage, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Away the savage.
Yeah. And that's something I tell my patients too, is like, that number's just a number. Like, how do you feel? How does it translate to like what you're able to do, what you're able to move, what you're able to accomplish? So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how those numbers correspond with how you guys feel.
Yeah, I agree. So,
Well, you might not be able to get some guys to get off of TRT or ready for that, but how many people that haven't started it yet can learn to optimize things when they're 18 and they want to start something, and they want to be strong, but they've heard horror stories that they don't want to get boobies, right? Because they've seen all these, or whatever. They just are scared to start something, or they just morally don't want to, but they want to be able to learn how to do it naturally.
Or even the guys that are on TRT just want to live a little healthier.
So this is the way I see it. We can help out all three people. And the three people I'm talking about is the guy that is natural, that does not want to take that step. The guy that's on TRT that wants to live more healthy. And then old Cruz and old Hyles that were blasting. Like the individual, even that person can benefit to a degree because we can help reduce their oxidative stress, right? Because when you're running all them PDs, man, your oxidative stress is through the roof. So I think that we can help all three people. I really do. Who's going to benefit the most from this? It's going to be the guys that are like us, that come off of TRT, and this is all you got. You don't have an option. You have to do these things if you want to rebound. That's the person who benefits the most from it. But those other three people, they can still benefit, right? For sure.
And I agree with Cruz 100%. But me personally, what really threw me into this path is all the 17-year-old, 18-year-olds coming up to me at the gym, asking me about Tren and asking me about this because they know I did it.
Right.
I'm like, what kind of example am I going to set to the upcoming generation? You know, it's really huge. And there's a lot of young lifters that look up to me for some of the accomplishments that I've made in competition. So I want to point them in the right direction.
That's awesome, guys. There's no better way to end it than that. I appreciate you guys. Hyles, Cruz, thank you. We'll keep in touch and continue the journey.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. Remember, check out the website, chronic-curiosity.com, to join us at the forum, have some fun, interaction, pick you up a comfy t-shirt, or if you just want to support the show and donate, all that is on the website as well. Thank you. Until next time.
See ya.